When we look at the picture of an equivalent fraction, we should be able to see that an equivalent fraction should have the same area shaded. So starting with a 1/2 fraction, I want to find an equivalent fraction. Now I need to divide this up into different parts. So I'm going to divide this up into, instead of two parts, one part shaded and 2 parts whole, I'm going to do 2 parts shaded and 4 parts whole. So we end up with 2/4. And to go from the 1/2 fraction here to here, we times by 2, to times the top by 2, and we times the bottom by 2. Okay, and this keeps the same ratio. If I want to draw another equivalent fraction, well, I can chop up that 1/2 piece into 3 groups. Well, groups mean multiplication. So I can start with my original 1/2, and I can times by 3, times by 3, and that gives me an equivalent fraction of 3/6. Okay, and we can see that by doing, we did 3 groups of the part and groups of 3 of the 2 parts whole. For the last one here, I'm just going to divide that 1/2 fraction into 2 parts, 4 parts, okay, or groups of 4. So what I can do is then take my 1/2 fraction, and I can do groups of 4 on the top, groups of 4 on the bottom. That gives me groups of 4 for the part and 2 groups of 4 for the whole, to give me 4 out of 8. A 2/3 fraction, we can write an equivalent fraction. I can take my 2/3, 2 pieces that are shaded, and just chop them into 2 like that. So I end up with, instead of 2 parts, I end up with 4 parts. And so I start with 2 parts to 3 parts whole. I'm going to do groups of 2 for the shaded parts and groups of 2 for the whole parts. Okay, so the two parts shaded become now 4 parts to 6 parts. Okay, we can take our original 2/3, we can chop this up. The easiest way would be 1/2 and 1/2, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to divide this up into 2 parts and then 4 parts. Okay, so our original 2 parts to 3 parts, we're going to do groups of 4, groups of 4, and so we have 8/12 as an equivalent fraction. Here, starting with a 3/4 fraction, we can do this in bars as well. There's my original 3/4 fraction. I can divide this up into groups of 2. So my original shaded parts, the 3 shaded parts, I did it in groups of 2. So 3/4, I times 2 times 2, that gives me 6 out of 8 as my new fraction. I can do this into groups of 3. So groups of 3, groups of 3, groups of 3, groups of 3. Groups means multiplication, so I went from 3 parts shaded to groups of 3, or 9 parts shaded. And I have to do the same with groups of 3 for the for the whole parts, and I get 9/12 as an equivalent fraction. I can do this in a 100 grid. Really, I can just draw up this into into 4 parts. I know that 3 parts are shaded, and each one of those parts represents 25. So I know I have 3 groups of 25 out of 4 groups of 25, which is 100. So this is an equivalent fraction. So 75%, or 75 out of 100, represents an equivalent fraction to 3/4.